Today on the show, we talk about life, death, and everything Catholic. A few Catholic words related to it. The Catholic Underground starts right now. Alrighty, you have hit the play button on the Catholic Underground. We are the podcast, cutting through the noise and bringing you the topics that matter. It's episode number 430, I think.
29?
429? I don't know. I've lost count, but if you're keeping count, we hope that you are. I'm Father Chris Decker. Joining me this week, we've got Kathleen Lee. She's over in, Kathleen, I think we should just call it Studio K.
You know what? I like that. I like that a lot.
Kathleen's
I'll take it.
in Studio K. She joins us. Also joining us, we got Olivia Gulino, our student of life.
Yes, that's me.
Hey, Olivia.
Hey.
Also, Jeff Blackwell is still on assignment. His assignment number one is get better, and he's doing well. So for those of you who've been asking about Jeff and praying for him, he's in fact doing very well. He had to go back into the hospital briefly, but that situation's been sorted out, and so he is on the mend. In his place is Albert. Albert DuPont is working the audio board for us so that we will sound, generally favorable. So we thank Albert. And Ed Ball is running video in the video cave there. So
the ball pit?
The ball pit, as it were.
Yes.
Lest I forget the vocabulary. And thanks, Ed. And we've also got joining us as a special guest, someone who is very, very near and dear to the Catholic Underground's heart, because she's one of our biggest fans, is Danielle Van Hout. Is that right? Hout.
Yes, like shout.
I like shout.
Yeah.
Very nice.
How many times have you had to say that in your life?
It's okay.
That's right.
You want to shout?
It's not worth counting. Danielle Van Hout is the associate director of the Respect Life office at the Catholic Diocese of Baton Rouge. So for the Catholic Diocese, anytime there is a Respect Life issue, you're the phone call, right?
Usually, yes.
Yeah, welcome to the show. This is the first time you've been on the Catholic Underground.
It is. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
That's right, yeah.
So it's exciting to be here.
Yeah,
That's shocking.
So we're glad to have you on because when this show comes to air, it's the month of October. And so even if you might be watching us or listening to us in a different month, the month of October, in addition to being the month of the Rosary, it's also Respect Life Month.
It is.
And is there a particular reason for that designation, do you know, or is it just October was the month they picked?
Well, it's interesting because it was in the encyclical Evangelium Vitae that Pope John Paul II said that there should be a specific day set aside to be designated as Respect Life Sunday, and it was
something slightly more important than like Chocolate Chip Cookie Day.
It's a little bit.
National Donut Day.
So so it was the first Sunday in October. I don't know how much
I'll tell you, there's something about October, right? Because you have a day, October 13th, which was one of the days connected to Our Lady of Fatima. Now you have Blessed Carlo Acutis, the little programmer saint. So all these neat things happen in October, and so it makes sense, that why not? In the wise mind of the Church, October is officially Respect Life Month, and so we thought we'd spend a show talking a little bit about that very thing, about what it means to say that we respect life. And that it's not just what people think that it is, right? But to get that conversation started, we probably need to establish our bona fides, right? What authority does the Church have to talk about these issues? In fact, we hear it pejoratively all the time, especially when there is an issue coming up like, a Supreme Court nominee or something. Abortion is always, always, always at the forefront of these discussions. And the very first thing pejoratively is like, you have no business, Catholic Church, telling me about what I want, who I should respect and how. And so what business do we have talking about life issues?
Right. So there are so many starting points that we could kind of jump off into this. It was the Catholic Church who really was Christ who first started to call attention to just the intrinsic dignity of each individual human person. And something from Gaudium et Spes, actually all the Second Vatican Council documents that always jumps out at me is the Second Vatican Council was recognizing all of the turmoil in the world, all of the questions that
and
people were
especially
encountering.
man's inhumanity to man, right?
Yeah.
So really the immediate fallout of the World War II generation, trying to rebuild everything, including this notion of what is man.
Right, right. And for the Second Vatican Council, they recognized that the church has the key to life and everlasting life. And the church had a responsibility and has a responsibility to present that truth
in every
to
age.
the world in every age. And then to uphold the dignity of every individual, particularly those who are most vulnerable, most cast aside, most ignored. So it's and respect life. It is the gospel. There is one gospel, the gospel of life, the gospel of Christ. It is all one and the same.
And it's interesting how in those opening documents of Gaudium Spes, I believe it's paragraph number 23, that the church is very clear that it is Christ who reveals man to himself. And if we want to know what we believe about ourselves as created in the image and likeness of God, as of infinite dignity, we need to look at the one who became flesh, the God who became man, and that is Christ. And so because we as human beings would look to Jesus and say, you are of inestimable worth, you are God, you are the Word made flesh, he ennobles us. By becoming flesh. And so I think of the times in the scriptures where Jesus is trying to go against what the prominent beliefs of the time are. Like when that tower at Siloam fell, they were saying, well, whose sins was it that why did the tower fall on them? And Jesus is like, that's not how it works.
Right. Yeah.
It's not because they were sinful that a tower fell. A tower fell.
Yeah.
They are children of an almighty God. They are loved and directly willed by God. Bad things happen, but he lifted them up in a sense by lifting up the memory of these people who died because something tragic happened. And of course, we know that in the scriptures, Jesus always goes towards those that nobody wants to touch.
Yeah. And I think that like something interesting is, there's this immediate, like maybe, I don't know if it's immediate, but like you see in society that there's this like, well, who are you to talk about, life issues or my personal issues or my beliefs or whatever. And the interesting thing though, is that like the church is often the only one talking about that, right? Because like you listen to like the narrative of the world, and the narrative doesn't, the world doesn't say positive things, right? In the sense of like saying something versus saying nothing. Yeah. Like the world will tell you like, you are not this, right? You are not that. You are not what they told you. You are not this, whatever. But the world doesn't give a positive value. It doesn't say you are this. Yeah. The church, though, does, right? And like Gaudium et Spes even says, like, people hounded by hunger call upon those better off. I love that. Hounded by hunger, right? Like, so even if there's a sense of like, well, I don't know that I believe what you believe, or like, what are you going to try to like do to me, like people who are in a state of longing and of that kind of deep interior poverty, right? Like I think I know all these things that I'm not, but what am I? Right? And we have to have somewhere to go with that question. And those are like those existential foundational questions. And especially like in a world that's inundated by new technology all the time, that's constantly bringing up those questions. Right. I have to have somewhere to go to ask that question of who am I? Right? And not what am I not?
Exactly. And I know, Kathleen, you and I were talking before the show about how predominantly in our culture, everything seems to be relegated to, that's just your opinion.
Yeah.
And that there's no absolute anything, right?
Well, yeah, and yeah, when we talk about that, this is my, the world is telling you, like, speak your truth. Look, boo, if I'm talking about my truth, like, I know that the truth, whatever truth I come up with, is not even going to compare, like, it's so flawed. Like, I'm not relying on what I think is true. Yeah. So
if I'm the Bible, there is no Bible.
Right. Talking to my students, I'm like, what a gift to be able to say, this is the truth, and I can stand in this truth, and I don't have to worry about like, where did it, how can I defend my truth? I defend what the church teaches, and I don't defend that on my, the truth of the church. I don't defend that on my own, and that's what's so beautiful about everything the church teaches, is that The church never says this is just, I've said this a million times. The church doesn't say this is just it. You have to believe it because, I tell my students it's not like a whole bunch of old men are sitting up in an office somewhere going, what can we just make people believe?
Yeah.
There's so much beauty in the teaching behind why we believe what we believe about life and human dignity, and when does life begin, and when should it end, and everything in between. There's beauty behind the teaching. We just have to be able to find it and sit down,
and we're encouraged to do that.
Right. And we've become such a people of the headline. If it doesn't say it in the headline, I get all that I can understand. I know everything I need to know about an article from the headline. Yeah. And that's why there's so much misunderstanding about what the church teaches.
That's right. It's kind of the clickbaitification of church teaching.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just speaking about where the church kind of derives some of her authority, especially in the midst of all the technologies that are out there, because we can tend to, especially now, go, well, because we can do so many things with technology, and because we can fix so many issues, even biologically speaking with technology, we should let technology be the leader.
Right.
Yeah.
But the CDF, so that's the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, in 1987. The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith is what kind of legislates and makes sure that the truth is being taught, that the truth is being upheld as Christ has revealed it through the scriptures and his church. And you'll remember a man by the name of Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, who became Benedict XVI, by the way, in 1987. The cutest pope ever, according to Olivia. Said in 1987, the church's magisterium, so the teaching body of the church, does not intervene on the basis of a... my computer went to sleep.
Of a particular
competence in the area of the experimental sciences, but having taken account of the data of research and technology, it intends to put forward, by virtue of its evangelical mission and apostolic duty, the moral teaching corresponding to the dignity of the person and to his or her integral vocation. So the church understands her authority not only just as something given by Christ, but able to speak morally on the issues of the morals that correspond to, first of all, human dignity, to the fact that we are human beings.
Right. I think what the church is asking, what the world in general is not, is a question of just because we can, when it comes to technological advances, and especially having to do with human life, just because we can, should we?
Yeah.
And what is our responsibility? And I think that, we're talking about technological advances and all these things that science has come up with in terms of how we manipulate human life. The question is not, what should we or shouldn't we do? It's, let's do what we can do. It's available. We have this technology. Let's do it. And it's like, okay, nobody's looking at the repercussions of it.
Well, and I think that's tied to like what you were saying earlier too, about like your truth, my truth. Like, I was talking with, with my students about like ethical relativism just this past week. And one of the things we talked about was like how relativism says that in a world where, like, at least when it comes to like ethical choices, but there's all types of relativism, cognitive, which just like has to do with truth in general. Like when it comes to relativism, I look at anything, like my survey of the world, and I take out, this is all happening like subconsciously, but I take out anything that's objective, right, and I leave in anything that's subjective. And so then I'm only seeing things in my perspective, but the things that are objective that I'm taking out of the situation, they don't just disappear and like the need for them goes away. So like in a moral situation, I have like the principles of human dignity and of human life, and things like, don't steal, don't murder, right? And if without those principles and without the person of the divine being that sets those order, that order in place, just like he sets the laws of physics in place, without that, there's this gap there, and I have to, right? There's got to be something there, and all that's left is me. So I got to put myself in that role, and so I do make up the rules. I am like the arbiter of my own truth now. And that's a dangerous place to be, because like I am not God, right? I can think that I am, and I can act as if I am, but the consequences of that are going to be far reaching.
Yeah. And the really sad thing about that, right, is that left to my own devices without God, and I've been meditating on this for quite a while now, Left to my own devices without God, I will attempt to play God. And because I cannot create out of nothing, I will attempt to create out of something that I have destroyed.
Yeah.
I bring something down to its base elements as best as I can, and I can pretend that it's nothing out of which I'm building a new something.
That's really good.
And I mean, that's the basis certainly of socialism and of communism as well, is that we destroy the old order and we use its pieces to build up the new thing. And that's relativism, writ large. That's the ultimate failure in order for relativism to succeed, is that I play God and destroy because I can't create out of nothing.
Right.
And so whenever we start talking about this very core principle that is being pro-life, it's no surprise that today in the world in which we live, it's a powder keg no matter what.
Yes.
And that's why the church speaks about being pro-life in a holistic sense, right? That it's concerned with dignity of the human person at the very core.
Right. And it's depending on who you ask to define the term pro-life, you will get that many different answers. So when the church is speaking about being pro-life, having respect for life, she is talking about every single individual. Right. It is all.
It's really quite something to think about that when the church says, I am pro-life and we must respect life, she's doing as God does. God knows the hairs on the head of every person that has ever lived and will ever live.
Right.
And the church is attempting to draw all that into herself as a mother, right?
Right. And it's, there can be tension with that for different reasons. Sometimes we may misunderstand what that means. And we may think, well, but, not all of these issues are equal and this, and that's true. That is not what the church is saying. But what is equal is the sacredness of every human life. So we need to acknowledge that. And there are particular issues that weigh more heavily simply because of the prevalence of them, the act itself, but every single life is sacred.
That's right. And it's important to note what the word sacred means, right? If we want to go back to even the beautiful Jewish words of being kadosh, right? Of being set apart, of being set aside, not just so that I can kind of sit in my own corner and do my own thing, but set apart for God's service, to worship God and to be a vehicle of how God wishes to work. It's like the gospel that we heard this weekend was the one of the king throwing the wedding feast. And whenever we, by virtue of the dignity that we have been invited to the wedding feast, and then we are clothed with the wedding garment in our baptism, the Lord then kind of makes us servants to go out into the highways and hedgerows and draw more people in. And so that's even the apostolic nature of why we as human beings are called to respect life, because we're drawn up in God and the church's desire to respect every human individual and even every hair on their head.
Exactly. And that is one of the primary reasons we can't separate the evangelical call of the church, even when we're talking about issues of respect life, or natural family planning, or, whatever else. Our desire is for everyone to be drawn into deeper union with Christ and
to come
the church.
to know him so that we can know about ourselves, which smashes the chains of relativism because it draws us into something bigger than ourselves that we must encounter. And how much more important would it be that we encountered in a positive and loving way?
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about the preeminent issue, but first we should remind you that we are the Catholic Underground. Alrighty. There's a bit of a wave happening here. I don't know what
Danielle would tap into her inner 90s.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Not accessible tonight.
You're not accessible to the 90s in your head. I'm Father Chris Decker, joined this week as we are by Kathleen over in Studio K. Hey, Kathleen.
Hi. Still here.
Still here. Yeah. Do you have any snacks at your K table?
No, I ate them ahead of time.
Oh, we'll have to let
cheese.
craft services know. No night cheese.
I am in Jeff's realm.
Yeah.
So there are poppable pork rinds.
Oh.
I haven't made it to the microwave yet though. So
I see. That's good.
Poppable.
Okay. Yeah. It's like a little popcorn bag, but it's pork rinds. That's a deep magic for me.
Yeah, that's a feat of technology right there.
Yeah. Also joining us, Olivia Gulino.
Pork rindless.
And from the Diocese of Baton Rouge Respect Life office, Danielle Van Hout.
Hello.
Hi, Danielle. It's good to have you here because already the show has been ennobled by your presence.
Oh, thank you.
And we're talking about pro-life issues, and so we figure as we kind of launch into a deeper discussion, we'd start with the preeminent issue, right? And the church, this is what makes all the headlines, is the notion of respecting life from the moment of conception.
Yes.
And that is, and why do we call that the preeminent issue?
Well, there's a few reasons that the church recognizes that as the preeminent issue. Well, first, when we look at the scale of which, the frequency of which abortions are occurring, since Roe v. Wade has passed, just in our country alone, we've had over 61 million abortions.
61 million.
And so the loss of the innocent life of a child that's another aspect that leads to this being the preeminent issue. The most defenseless life is taken. And then the woman does not leave that abortion unchanged.
Right.
She has been profoundly wounded as well.
Yeah, and it's not just a physical wound.
Exactly.
It's a spiritual wound, right?
Deep
Think of kind of the
spiritual
Lord
wound.
of the Rings, you know, the dagger may create a wound that you can see, but it also in Frodo created a spiritual wound, something that he could see when he closed his eyes, so to speak. And abortion really much is very much that.
Yeah.
Because it's another soul.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's abortion is happening in what is supposed to be this safe haven of the family.
Right.
That is what the family is called to be, this place of protection. And it completely goes against that.
Absolutely. And it's really, do you think that abortion, that just the word, has simply itself kind of become the all-embodying notion? Like we remove what happens within abortion and we just simply leave it at the word. In fact, I was driving, there's something that's coming along down the pike soon in the Louisiana on our ballot to have a line in our Constitution making it very clear that abortion will not be provided for. And there's no way in which ever the language of abortion can be provided for in our Constitution. And so that's up for a vote, right? A referendum vote, right? And I saw the first time the vote no for that on a big billboard as I'm coming across the Mississippi River Bridge, and it says protect abortion. And I thought to myself, what? Protect, normally we think protect life.
Yeah.
This said protect abortion. And there was a picture of a baby.
Wow.
And I'm like, so just that image itself is
So
attempting to kind of twist so that abortion itself is in some way connected with life, but we don't make the connection that it's terminating it.
Right.
You know?
And I think when we're talking about abortion, there are so many different levels on which this conversation is taking place. And we need to recognize that on one level, it's a lot of sound bites that we're hearing. I think for most people, they are not having conversations about abortion. And a recent study that was commissioned by the McGrath Institute showed this, that people are not having these conversations. And
are they just kind of lobbing the buzzwords back and forth?
Well, they're
just not
afraid
talking
to use them.
I see. I see.
So the very active people from both sides, you know, if you will, are the voices that we're hearing.
I see.
But this is not a conversation that's happening in
among non-politically
place
charged
where,
situations.
Yes, and that is where it needs to be happening. But part of the reason it's not happening is because people are kind of afraid of opening that powder keg and what's going to happen. The other thing is that the majority, we have all been affected by abortion. So, you know, we need to understand when we're coming to this issue, there's probably someone in our lives that has experienced abortion. If it's not the woman herself or the man himself who has been directly involved, we've had a friend, a sister, a cousin, whatever it is.
My goodness, you activated Siri.
Oh, I have that effect.
You know, you can always tell when you're having a good conversation because Satan will attempt to use technology to throw you off the scent. So, this day.
No.
Not this day. Keep going.
No. Yeah. Right. So, you know, being mindful that we have personal experience with this issue. And part of what we need to do as a church is create places where these discussions can happen. Because so often, if I'm a practicing Catholic and I may know what the church teaches about abortion, I know what the right answer is. But if I'm struggling and thinking, how do I reconcile that? Now, where am I going to go to talk about that? Do I feel safe calling my priest? I'm probably not going to go to the talk that's labeled, why we need to make abortion illegal. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have talks like that. We should. But we also need places where people can come and dialogue in the sense that dialogue to reach truth.
Truth-seeking understanding, right, as St. Anselm would say. Kathleen, actually, you have an interesting perspective because you worked briefly for the Women's New Life Center. And so my hunch is that some of this was new to you as you were going into that position, trying to kind of encounter those who were perhaps trying to find a safe place.
When it comes to like abortion, whatever side you're on, it seems to be that you either you're accused of loving one over the other. And so I remember, and I think I've shared this here, our clinic that we offered free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, free professional counseling, which was important because we were looking at the woman as a whole. Not just what was quote unquote are considered physically wrong with her, her pregnancy.
The language, right, that they use,
But her as a whole being, and what this not only did, affected her physically, but emotionally, spiritually even. My window was probably about 2 feet to 4 feet from the parking lot of the abortion clinic next door. And there's no way, I tell people this, I would tell people this all the time. There's no way, even if my clinic was not what it was, if my clinic was, say, a bank or something else, there's no way that you can see and witness the humanity and the inhumanity and not be affected by that.
That's right. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're the Catholic Underground, and we will see you on the other side of the break. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Oh, yes, my friends, you have found the Catholic Underground somehow by hook or by crook, or just by, viewing the podcast and saying, hey, that sounds interesting. Yeah, maybe a Facebook link. Yeah, I'm Father Chris. If you're just joining us for the first time or for the first time in a while, it's still me. Nice to see you. Joined by Kathleen Lee in Studio K. Also, we have Olivia Gulino. And joining us specially from the Diocese of Baton Rouge's Respect Life office, Danielle Van Hout.
Yes.
Hey, Danielle.
Hello. The inimitable.
The inimitable, yes. She indeed is inimitable, right? She created by God specifically.
I had the pleasure of working with Danielle before, and let me tell you, it's a gift. So if you ever get the opportunity, do it.
That's right. One of the things we didn't do at the top of the show is talk a little bit about you, and maybe we could do that very, very briefly. Talking about all the issues that lead up to respecting life, with respect for life from conception being the preeminent issue. But my hunch is, my spidey sense tells me that you didn't just kind of fall into this, but that there's something that that kind of led your heart toward it. Is that right? Is that close? Or did you just fall into it?
No, I think definitely the path was laid out by the Lord, as with everything. My husband and I moved our family to Baton Rouge from Georgia. Almost 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago.
That's about right.
And I just knew that somehow I was being called to work for the church. My background degrees in theology, but had actually done hotel management and worked in women's health.
Sometimes you need a theology degree, I guess, to do hotel
really,
management.
it can take you anywhere.
The liberal arts.
That's right. It is the liberal arts. Yeah.
So just, knowing that I was going to work for the church in some capacity, I found out that 40 Days for Life was going on. That was 2011. It was the first year, actually, that there was a 40 Days for Life campaign in Baton Rouge.
Okay, and 40 Days for Life is the intentional praying for 40 days, usually during the Lenten season, is that right?
40 days, so there's a fall campaign and then a campaign during Lent.
Okay,
yes,
right.
So, yeah.
Specifically praying for the end of abortion,
exactly.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I came out, and that's where really I first met so many of the folks that I'm still connected with now.
Yeah.
And eventually saw that the diocese was hiring for a particular position, and and things just kind of went on from
barreled
there.
in that direction,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Still
that.
barreling. So.
That's right. Like that railroad thing at Disney World. That I forget what they call that. Sorry, Father
monorail?
Palermo. What now?
The monorail?
No, not the monorail. The one that's a roller coaster that looks like a train. Sorry. The chat room will help me. Yeah. But yeah, working for the church is very much like a roller coaster for sure.
Oh, it's been wonderful.
But to be able to work in an office that is specifically designated for Respect Life, do many dioceses have that? Do you know, or is this kind of a position that's needed, and there it happens to be for our diocese?
So it varies so much from diocese to diocese. I would say a good number of dioceses do have, if not a particular office, then a person who is charged with kind of overseeing
who's kind of the
those
point
issues,
person for those.
In whatever way it looks like in that particular
Typically
diocese.
kind of connected to the marriage and family life office or something.
Sometimes? Again, sometimes with Catholic Charities. Sometimes it's a standalone office. Sometimes it's part of the Office of Justice.
The Office of Justice.
Yes.
That's right. Kathleen would definitely be the director of the Office of Justice.
Seriously.
I'm the executive director of Justice.
Amazing.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Well, really cool. We're glad that you accepted that position, and I know that speaking as a priest of the diocese, that it's important for us, right, to be able to shuttle someone who's trying, as we were talking about earlier, to have those conversations, because sometimes even as priests, we don't feel like we have the acuity to have those conversations with the level of depth. Sometimes that can only be done by a layperson, right? That can accompany them in a way that sometimes we're not able to do. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
very much.
It's been a gift. It's a great gift to work for the church.
And so certainly part of the work that you do, talking about 40 Days for Life, is dealing with the preeminent issue of life at its earliest stage. Now, from conception, I'm paraphrasing here, but one of the things that the church talks about in talking about when life begins is that that as soon as the sexual act is completed between husband and wife, and the embryo is fertilized, right? Or the egg is fertilized, I should say. It all of a sudden begins, and this is a direct quote: "The adventure of human life begins." And so the notion that the very moment that husband and wife have become one flesh and have done something to bring about not only unity of the spouses, but also specifically to procreate, the moment that act is done, the adventure of life begins for the embryo, right? For the egg that has been fertilized. And so all of a sudden, that is the moment wherein the soul is given as a gift by God to that embryo, because it's its own. And how beautiful to think that at that microscopic level, God is active. And at that microscopic level, man and woman coming together in the beauty of marriage are able to do something that only God can do, but that God allows. So, so that's why we speak about it as the preeminent issue, because that's the miniature Big Bang. That's the flashpoint for this new universe that is a child. Yeah. And I mean, you want to talk about kind of mind-blowing to meditate on that. That's why we speak about that as the preeminent issue. But one of the things that we also know, especially as you do in the Respect Life office, that the phone calls that come into your office aren't just about pro-life from the standpoint of ridding our world of the scourge of abortion.
Right.
But also there are many other issues that flow forth from life beginning at conception. Right. Oftentimes, I guess because of the abortion thing in our just current relativistic mindset, we don't even really think about anything after conception because we're so tied up with saying that's nothing.
Right. Well, and that's interesting because that you kind of phrase it that way, because it immediately brings my mind to miscarriage.
Yeah.
And the number of parents who lose a child to miscarriage and then are in this precarious place.
Yeah, this kind of middle ground of what do we do?
Okay, that was our child, yet how does society encounter them?
Right.
Because for this other woman, it was just, that's fine.
Yeah.
And that is, that's a real need in the church, is to have more resources to validate the grief.
That's correct.
Of parents.
That's right.
And, having a place for burial for miscarriage.
That's right.
And we are so blessed in the Diocese of Baton Rouge because we have so many individuals who are committed to making something available.
That's right.
And Bishop Duca has just been incredible with his support. So there's a lot more attention being brought
That's right.
to that.
And the death of a child through miscarriage is a life issue, right?
Absolutely.
It's not only recognizing the life of that child who, praise God, is an intercessor now, but also the life of the parents because they have experienced a crucifixion. A friend of the Catholic Underground, Chris Williston, in Austin, Texas, experienced a miscarriage of a child. And that led to the creation of an apostolate, the Mary Claire Project, where they provide resources and caskets for miscarried children. And so, again, that's one of those things that oftentimes, because we just kind of steamroll through life issues as let's not talk about abortion, that we forget that there are those many components afterwards that are concerned first and foremost with the dignity of each human person. And from the moment of that miniature Big Bang in the womb, right? Whatever happens, even through the effects of original sin, right? That's what we believe, that anytime a crucifixion takes place, right? Whether it's an accident at work or whether it is the loss of a child in the womb, it's not because God wants it. It's because we live in a fallen world wherein bad things happen. And so if there's no way for us to give word to this, to actually allow that moment of death to be sacred, then it creates a much larger wound where we can where life begins to be taken from us. And I think that if we do not mourn death, then we have no ability to rise. So that really, to me, seems like what the pro-life movement, if you will, is all wrapped up in, is in saying that God does not will death. So let us concentrate not only on life, but on resurrected life, on new life, on what the Lord wishes to do. And that's why part of the work I would imagine that you do is truly recognizing the evils, not just of abortion, but also of other things too.
Right. So when we talk about Respect Life, it's like what doesn't fall under that heading.
Right, exactly,
But I mean, we certainly can delineate some particular topics.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, capital punishment would come
right, which is,
that.
of course, is another kind of hot topic too, because it's often politically charged.
Right. Infertility, which is kind of coupled with these techniques of artificial reproductive technologies and vitro fertilization.
Things that separate
things like that.
The marital act from the transmission of life effectively kind of separating love from the act of procreation, right?
Exactly. Education on the evils of human trafficking. I just, so many.
Is aside from the pro-life situations that are kind of designated within life in the womb, what would you say would be the next most kind of prevalent thing that either comes across your desk or you get phone calls about or people ask you about?
That's a good question.
I don't know if this would count or not in terms of how you're thinking, but it would be couples struggling with infertility.
Yeah, okay, sure. No, that absolutely.
Cannot conceive life in the womb because it's
a great sadness.
It is such a trauma for them, and month and rightly
after
so,
month. Because we're hardwired, right? Yes. It's part of the natural law that we are hardwired to procreate, right? It's given by God, and it resonates from within us, right?
I think one of the things that when we're dealing with when I'm talking to people about infertility and how we approach that, is to change the mindset or the thinking that children are right. That, and I think this, when it comes to abortion, is the same thing. That they're this commodity, that children, but the children are a right and not necessarily a gift. And none of that is to say that I don't know what it's like to struggle with infertility, and I know plenty of friends who have. I can't imagine the struggle that's there when there's a desire to
bring children into the world,
to be co-creators with God and to fulfill that part of us, and that desire to have kids, But I think that is an issue. Are we seeing children as a right that I have?
And therefore a choice,
right?
right.
And something that I can take control over. In ways that are not appropriate. Or is it a gift that I'm allowing myself to be, and my spouse, right, to be co-creators with God in ways that are, that are acceptable.
You sparked something in Olivia there.
Well, I was thinking about it because I was thinking about that word commodity too, and I think that that's an opportunity for everyone to be pro-life. I mean, because I can be pro-life even if I'm never gonna personally encounter a lot of these issues, and I might never, know. But my role as being someone who is oriented towards life is to attend to the life, the life principle, the soul, the dignity of a human person, and I can do that no matter what. When it comes to miscarriage, I attend to life by practicing the corporal work of mercy of burying the dead. I can attend to life in every situation, and I should, right? I should always be discerning, how can I attend to life? And so in this situation, even if you're not someone who struggles with infertility, we can still have this kind of implicit idea that a couple has been married. I find this in the church, especially with more of the even the younger generations, but the very faithful kind of Catholics, you'll see that there's this implicit understanding of well, you've been married for a year, when are y'all going to start having babies?
Yes.
Or you've had one kid and that was 5 years ago. So when's number 2, and there may be innocently intended questions, but I feel a lot of times, especially with the friends that I know who have been married maybe for several years and have not had any luck conceiving, right? There's this great weight because there's this commodity that has been enshrined, and I can't get to it. So something is wrong with me. Something is wrong with us. I am not enough. I am broken. And that's in a maybe innocently intended way. It's an inattention to life, right? The life that's in front of us.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, it's almost a riff on human trafficking. It's making life into a commodity, right? Something to be traded. And whether that trade is, I want to be able to talk about my grandchildren, and I want what my other grandmas have, and things like that. That's a real important discussion to have, as you said, to be able to have those discussions, but to be able to inject human dignity into it, right? Because it's there. but our world teaches us to live a fake gospel that is only concerned with humanity as the commodity, right? And I think that's where we can talk about other areas like what you were talking about, prison ministry, right? And the capital punishment, the death penalty, and things like that. That to be able to recognize life at every stage and in every situation means that we even recognize what happens whenever somebody has transgressed against either divine or civil or natural law in some way, that even then they still have a responsibility, or we have a responsibility to recognize their dignity.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, and that brings us to our word of the day, if I may, right? We figured we'd do a little segment that we call Catholic Vocab.
Yes.
And so our Catholic Vocab word of the day is restorative justice. All right, so restorative justice. And this is what we talk about, how we as Catholics are called to encounter those who have transgressed against the law and are now imprisoned. And as a potential way of saying, what more can be done other than terminating the life of the person who has perpetrated a crime? Did I get that question right, I guess, or that kind of setup right?
Yeah, going to the root of these issues and restoring not just what was lost through the crime, or trying to make restoration, but also restoring the person and the dignity of the person, and looking at that. And that's, none of this is quote unquote easy. Like these are hard.
That's right. Yeah.
These are hard, weighty.
Yeah.
issues.
Right. Well, because again, if you've been victimized or you've been wounded by someone, oftentimes the last thing we want to do is recognize them as a human being, because they didn't afford us the same dignity.
Right. Sure.
Whereas the U.S. bishops say a Catholic approach begins with the recognition that the dignity of the human person applies to both victim and offender. And the bishops say that we, quote, we believe that the current trend of more prisons and more executions with too little education and drug treatment does not truly reflect Christian values and will not really leave our communities safer. We're convinced that our tradition and our faith offer better alternatives that can hold offenders accountable and challenge them to change their lives, reach out to victims and reject vengeance, and restore a sense of community and resist the violence that has engulfed so much of our culture. And that I think is probably a good introduction to the notion of restorative justice, is what can we do to restore not just the victim, right? Outside of trying to seek vengeance apart from the vengeance that ultimately is the Lord's, right? But how can we also restore the offender? And that we have a responsibility to do that in as much as we can, and not just simply terminate the life of a person who has committed an offense.
Yeah. Here in Louisiana, we have a pretty tough prison called Angola. And, when I was in high school, I learned a lot about the death penalty from one of our sisters, Sister Helen Prejean, who wrote, of course, Dead Man Walking, has extensive experience with people.
And walking with them,
Right, and walking with people who are on death row. And, I really, before that, I was like, well, lock them up, throw away the key, whatever. But when you look at the opportunity that people have, even when they're locked up, and you look at the history of Angola, it's had a pretty bloody history. But now they have these programs where these men can feel like they have something to contribute to society. And many of them will tell you, I remember going to a retreat put on by inmates.
And they do a fantastic job. Those guys are great.
Was phenomenal, right? And I remember they were telling us a little bit about themselves, and they didn't take that opportunity to say, look, I don't need to be in here, so whatever. No, right? Many of them said, look, I am where I am because of the choices that I made. But the opportunity that they have to minister, many of them are ministering in a hospice program that's set up. They're building and making things. They're contributing to the little society that is the prison. You know, the opportunity to do that makes them feel like a human being.
Yeah, it actually restores their humanity.
Yes, right.
And if you see like the little sprigs that happen from that, some of the most beautiful artwork that we have at the diocese, or some paintings and some of the crafts and things that were created by the prisoners, because they were for the first time loved.
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes it is a lack of love that causes us to make choices that destroy human life.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a documentary called Serving Life, and it is about the hospice ministry at Angola.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, that would be.
Oh, you just gave us a shadow pick of the week. I like that. And that's very cool. Yeah. Serving Life. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll have to see if we can find that in the show notes for you.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, like, that all of this falls under, and naturally so, like the umbrella of justice.
Yeah.
Because I think people a lot of times have this idea of justice as like hard line, like you get what you deserve kind of thing. But like the justice that we have to fall back on, that we have to always start from, is like giving to each his due. Right. And so that's why, you know, justice sometimes involves like punishment, right? Like a some kind of punitive nature or activity, right? Because like, if I haven't given to someone else their due, I've committed an injustice that has to be corrected, right? But we can also go too far the other way and like start to commit injustices to other people and call it justice. And so
when
like,
it's just vengeance.
When it's just vengeance, And so like restorative justice is beautiful because like at its heart, it's about like calling you back to like the way that you were created, right? Calling you back to the beauty of your creation and saying like that what you did before is not you. So like come back to that, right? Because what you're due is eternal life, right? Or like what you are made for is eternal life, right? And it's something that we are co-creators with God to reach, right? To attain. But like I feel like mercy is so often missing from our sense of justice, especially in our society that like radicalizes everything. Right. And justice and mercy are like not friends. They don't talk to each other. When you look at true justice involves mercy, because mercy is what allows me to like take a step back, even if I have to do it mentally, like my own presuppositions, to take a step back and see first the person. And then to
reach into their situation. And provide aid.
And that takes effort, right? It's very easy to look at a rap sheet, to look at what someone did, to look at like just the cold hard facts and make judgments, right? But again, that would be making myself God, right? And even God first looks at the person. God calls us by name. And so like if we're going to do anything and call it justice, we have to do that too.
Well, I think, you know, when we look at this issue, it's the same as looking at abortion. There is not one side or the other. You know, when we talk about dealing with criminals and people who are in prison, a lot of times to advocate for the life of a criminal, people will say, well, you don't advocate for the life of the victim. And that's not true. So when we talk about being pro-life, you know, and that's what I love about October, and that's what this month of pro-life is that, I'm involved in, anti-abortion work, right? But to say that I am pro-life means that, man, there's so much more that entails. You know, that it's not just an abortion topic, that it's, you know, from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death and everything in between.
And real quick, are there any events or practical things that we can do in the month of October? Certainly there's 40 Days for Life that comes up in these seasons.
And that, you know, regardless of where people are, they can go and see if there is a campaign happening near them. So that's a great tangible thing to do. You know, I would say one thing would be pick a life issue that maybe you struggle with. Maybe it's capital punishment. Maybe,
as it is for many.
You know, right. And I would say start to read what the church teaches about that and embrace the struggle. Like don't be afraid to, you know, and if you need to get into
Mother
it with
Church
God,
has broad shoulders and God has broader shoulders.
Right.
Be willing to wrestle and lose, I guess.
Absolutely. So
that's good.
You know,
no, that's a very good thing. And that's part and parcel to being able to appreciate the dignity of the human person means taking this to prayer, right? But also being willing to be educated. And oftentimes that's the gap between saying I believe in this issue perhaps wrongly, and what does God have to say about it? You know, the gap there is to be educated, to form our consciences, not based upon the universe inside my brain, but to form our consciences on perhaps something that is outside of myself that is held to be universally true, because that's what the teachings of the church are, is that Catholic, right? Is that they're universally true, because Christ, his divine authority, certainly teaches us these things in Scripture, but then gives us the teaching body of the church to uphold those truths and to keep them, to kind of keep them always before us in every age, so that the church can read the signs of the times. And it's interesting that when the church reads the signs of the times, she doesn't change her truth based upon the times. She represents the truth in a language and in a way that those times can hear and then wrestle with.
Absolutely.
And still come to God, and still come to God. So that's very good. Yeah. And then we talk about outreach, right? Maybe it is going to pray before the abortion clinic. Maybe it is to get involved in prison ministry. Right. Maybe it is to do hospice care,
Exactly. Look at what is happening in your area and see how you may be able to contribute. Certainly with prayer, but with time, if you can volunteer, if you can donate particular items.
Your local diocese, wherever you are, your local diocese has a laundry list of things they can get you involved with.
Give
I'm
them a
sure.
ring.
That's exactly right. And hopefully they have a Respect Life office or coordinator somewhere that would be able to talk with you. And then also we note legislative action is to be able to go to the voting booth and to support life from conception until natural death, and to not forget about the dignity of those that the world may cast off because they are not deemed useful or because they are deemed not rehabitable, right? To be able to practice that restorative justice in the way that you vote as well. All right. Well, I tell you, it's been wonderful to have you on the show, Danielle. I mean, great. And honestly, I thought it was going to be like drinking from a fire hose, but no, it was like having a nice, tall, cool, fizzy beverage that you've brought us through so many of the life issues that we as Catholics are called to struggle with, certainly, so that we can say, Lord, how are you calling me to see with your eyes? So thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
It always helps priests too, because people think that we kind of just have the minerals to do it. No, we don't. We have to be educated as well. And so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Olivia Gulino also hath joined us.
I am here. It is true.
That's right. And Kathleen has joined us too. Kathleen, we're so happy that you've joined us from Studio K, which is really only 100 yards away.
Feels
75?
like a million years.
That's right. Yeah, so it's space and time for Kathleen. The Catholic Underground is made possible by viewers, listeners, and prayer warriors and benefactors like you. If you want to become an official Undergrounder, you can go to catholicunderground.com/donate and find out more. You can also help us out by letting other people know about us. If you liked this show, and if you like Danielle and her fantastic unfolding of respect for life, then remember to like us and heart us and star us on your platform of choice. And if the podcasting service that you have has a review option, consider leaving a favorable comment. And if you mention Danielle, you get 10% off your free podcast. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so to all the gang who has joined us this evening, we say thank you. Also to Ed Ball, our video director, and to Albert DuPont, who has been running the audio in persona, Jeff Blackwellus. We thank you very much. Also, Jim Hayes, who is our research assistant with his crew in the lab out there in California. Thank you, Jim, for all your help and for your prayer for our apostolate. And you know me. I'm Father Chris Decker. I'm at Digital Catholic on Twitter and Instagram. By the way, Inktober is still happening, and I've got to go do my Inktober drawing for tonight. So if you want to keep up with that, you can follow me at Digital Catholic. And you have been listening to the Catholic Underground. We're cutting through the noise so that you can find the still small voice. We're happy you joined us, and we'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.